Okay, let's get started. So if you have a quiz, please turn it in now because I don't want to have to say, oh, it's too late because it said start of class. So if you have a quiz, please turn it in very soon, like within the next 30 seconds, I'm saying. So what is happening on Friday? Test, okay, and I think you can see test here. So you ready to see what the test actually is like? So, spoiler alert, it's not the actual test. So here, what you're going to be getting are 3 pieces of paper. The papers that you'll be getting will be not stapled. So all 3 pages will not be stapled. It'll be front and back, except for the very last side. Please do not staple them because it's easier for me to grade it that way so that I can separate question 1 into a pile, question 2 into a pile, etc. But the reason why I say don't staple it is that your name and posting ID are on every single page. So if I happen to misplace a page but then find it later, there's no worry for that. So the directions are right here. I'll be putting the exams on Friday in, according to the seating chart. So make sure you sit according to the seating chart. There will be only 1 test for you. It'll have your name pre-printed on the test and your posting ID there. 50 minutes, 100 points. The only things you can use are your pencil or pen and your brain. Of course, no phone a friend, no 50-50, no going past go. Okay, so yeah, so no wireless stuff. Write all answers here and show a work. So the first part is mainly the multiple choice. Hopefully you can see some of it. So multiple choice. So there are 20 multiple choices I've said before, and the 20 multiple choice questions will be in 2 columns on these 2 pages. So it'll fill out all both of these pages. Any questions on multiple choice? Every question, there's no true false, there's no like right piece of code here. Every single question has either A, B, C, D, or E as an answer, every single one. So it's completely uniform. Then question 2 is one of the programming questions. I ask you to design a C++ program to do something. Include any headers that are needed and some assumptions that you can make. And then the other one is another C++ program for a problem that I want you to solve. So question 2 is going to be similar to the programming assignments that you've seen, but thankfully it's quite a bit shorter, so it's not as involved. The second one, so I like to have questions where it's a problem you've never seen before, and I want you to be able to think, well, how do we use the concepts that we've learned in the class to approach this type of problem that you haven't seen before? And I've already worked out the solutions. Both of these are quite short. So if you're writing like 30 lines of code, you're working way too hard on the question, okay? And for this one, you don't have to write anything outside of the main function. So you don't need headers or anything else like that, okay? Any questions on the test itself or logistics, yeah? You mean these 2 questions? Of course, yeah. So I had an instructor once who I had to fill 16 boxes with some values based on some algorithm, and I got 15 of them right, and I got 0 points on it. So I said from that day on, I'm not gonna be like that. I'm always gonna give partial credit. So the way that I like grading is to say, I give more points for good ideas than just writing a bunch of gibberish, hoping that I will give some partial points. So believe it or not, many people just write complete nonsense, trying to fill the page, make it seem like they did a lot. But the more you write, the more chance you're gonna get something wrong. So just write what is needed for the question. The code here for both of them is at most 15 lines each. So they're not long questions. They're meant to be short questions for you to be able to show that you understand the concept. Okay? Any other questions? Yeah.
If you're not including code outside the main function, can you still use stuff from different libraries, such as like using CMap or something?
You will not need it for this. Okay. Yeah, so I explicitly designed the question for which you do not need any other headers other than IOStream, but we can always assume that's there. Yeah.
Did you say there was a test review at the beginning?
The concepts that I put on the PDF on the course website.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we study for this question?
For what question?
Question 3 for the coding.
So I said question 2 is similar to the programming assignment. So what is a way to study the programming assignment?
The programming assignment?
We'll do the programming assignment, but what's another thing you can do? What was posted in addition to the assignment after the due date? The solution. So what should you do? Look at the solution. Okay? Question 3, this is just understanding the concepts mainly, and to try to think, well, I haven't seen this problem before, but try to use your problem-solving skills to be able to attack the problem. So it's a problem that many people have worked on, but it's just, can you use it using only your limited knowledge so far of C++? When we get to the more advanced stuff, starting next week, then we'll be able to attack this question more thoroughly, but can you actually do it with what you know so far? And the answer is yes. So and then I put some hints in here as well to try to guide you along for that. Other questions? Yeah?
For question 2, the assumptions, are you talking like the or like for range or scope?
For like what, so you'll be given inputs, and then you gotta output something based off some condition. For example, you can assume that the user won't enter any invalid input, like wrong input, quote unquote, that sort of thing. Other questions about the test or logistics or anything like that? Okay. So hopefully this will change back. Sweet. So any questions about someone wanted to ask about the quiz. So has everyone turned the quiz in? Because if you want to turn it in after I discuss the solutions, there's no chance of that. Okay, so they turned it in. So who wants to discuss the solution of quiz? Okay, so I think I have it here, so let's see. Quiz 2, solutions. Okay, so you can't turn your quiz in after now. Okay, so the first one was pretty straightforward, I think. I can't make it bigger. Yeah, so this one is pretty straightforward. You input the two values x and y, and then you just use the OR operator to say, is x equal to y squared or y equal to x squared? Then print square, otherwise not. So that one was pretty simple, yeah. Yeah, you can use power too. Yeah, as long as you import the right header, that's fine too. Yeah, you can definitely use POW, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, so as I said before, there's almost never a single right way to approach a problem. Like, as was just asked, could I use POW? Then, yeah, of course you can use POW. It accomplishes the same thing. So there are multiple ways of approaching the same problem. Another one you can do is here, invert the if and else condition to say, if x is not equal to y squared and y is not equal to x squared, then it can't be a square. So print not square in that case, else print square. So there are multiple ways to approach exactly the same problem. Yeah.
So if I
then you probably won't get full credit, but you'll get most credit. Yeah. Yeah, so, but in the case of that example I gave, it's full credit, but it's just that it may be a little harder to read, so you have to weigh in several criteria. Does this actually accomplish what I want to do, and is it readable? Yeah.
So you said no header, but if I use...
Yeah, I said there's no need for headers. It doesn't say you can't have a header there.
Most of us assume that you don't write headers. I mean, I wrote
Yeah.
math, I was like, I assumed that math was like a thing, but like, that is kind of...
Okay, well, that's fine. You can say I assume C math is included. That's fine. Yeah, it says no need for headers, but it doesn't say you can't use a header.
So we're not going to do that?
No. So as long as you say I assume C math is there or include C math, any one of those, as long as you say C math in there, that's fine. Yeah. Well, does it says if the two integers. Well, if you use long, that's fine, but I may take a few points off for that. Because it does, so if there's a specification given to you, you should abide by the specification. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Number one in innovation. Yeah, we got that award recently too, so even more relevant. Someone else had a question, I couldn't see who. I hope this is enough about the first question. Okay, so this second question was mainly inspired by a talk that I've seen a few years ago where people assume that you can just use this rand function and assume that you get uniform output all the time. So if you use, for example, rand in like an airline system, for example, you should probably expect to have every single integer uniformly output. But the issue is, even if you assume that rand is producing values uniformly at random, if you do mod here, you don't necessarily get every number occurring equally often. I use this type of thing all the time, where I say rand % this, and it's not the right thing to do, because it might some integers might be more likely than others. That's all I'm saying. So what is the range of values that y can be? 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Yep, because if you mod 5, whatever the integer was, it could either be 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Add 10, you get 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah?
Can't you also have a negative remainder?
No. So if you try it out for yourself, if you do like -1% 5, what does that actually get you? And spoiler alert, it'll give you 4. Someone had a question. Yeah.
So for that, I put the 2.4700.
Put the what?
Bottom part.
I can't hear you. You put the what?
So for the third part, I put the range of y will be -2 or 2, whatever that 2.47 is. And then in the bottom part, I explained that y can only equal 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah. So if you say this range from this statement, that's fine. Yeah. So I'm not strict in this type of thing. If you are clear in your answer, that's fine. It doesn't. The format is not that important. The concept and understanding are vastly more important. Okay. So I do read the answers. It's not like I'm a computer in disguise and I'm just scanning the page hoping you get exactly the same thing as this. No, I look at the answers and I try to get honest and helpful feedback for you. But any other questions on this one? So what about the second one? Anyone have an idea before I show the solution? I will post this today. But anyone have an idea? Yeah. 12 does not show up more. Yeah.
10 would show up more because 5 and 10 are both the number 1 and 5 would not produce a remainder. So then you get 0 plus 10.
Yes. So think about how many integers can be represented, which is this bottom number. So I said that you didn't need to know the probability, but there are still that many integers that could be possible. So think about it for a second. Is this number divisible by 5? No. So in fact, the remainders 0 and 1 will occur more often than 2, 3, or 4. Yeah.
So, I just like used the rand and put in a negative number. Like I did negative 22 rand percent 5, and I got a negative remainder in C1. Like I just assumed because you can get like I didn't do that before, but I just tried it.
Did you do negative 22% 5 or parentheses negative 22% 5? Because the negative can take precedence.
I think it does the same thing. Yeah.
Send me an email.
Okay.
One of you two send me an email, and then I'll take a look at it.
I can take a screenshot.
But it should always give you a value between 0 and 4, no matter what. Yeah, modular arithmetic always gives you a value between 0 and the number minus 1, regardless of whether it's negative or positive. Well, it's just if you divide the number, there's some remainder, even if it's negative.
But I think what happened is because we assumed that modulus can hit negative, and it does that, and then you can find the negative.
So
And so it was kind of a problem. We didn't know if we wanted to assume absolute value of it or not, which kind of exists since it still outputs.
Well, that's kind of preempted by this answer, because y can only take on these 5 values, regardless of what.
Well, I think the value is 6 to 14. We have a negative remainder.
So,
We got negative 2 plus 3.
Send me an email. Okay. Okay. Just send me an email, and then we can discuss. Other questions? Yeah.
So here's the fun part, is it turns out that random only outputs operators, so that would be why there's discrepancy.
Okay. I'll figure out what to do. I may have to do a case-by-case basis of what the answers were. But RAND should, okay. Yeah. Okay, I can see why it could give only positive numbers, but I'll look at it, yeah. So this is a problem, right? That I assumed that it was this range, but it might not be. So send me an email, and you probably should send me one too. I'll take a look at it. If there's such a discrepancy, I might give everyone full points on that. Yeah. Other questions about it, though? But this is what it should be. So if it produces that many integers, then some are more likely than others because it doesn't uniformly divide 5. That's what I was trying to get at for this problem. If it did divide 5, then maybe they're all equal. But since it doesn't, there must be some that divide it more, have a more often to have this remainder than another. Yeah.
Why are you dividing by, or why are you doing modulus of 429 whatever instead of the negative 248?
Yeah. So I assumed that this was the range of integer. So this is the number of possible values that the integer could take.
But then doesn't that neglect like any negative number?
Yeah, that includes the negative numbers too. So if it's 0 through this large number, then that's the number of integers it could be representing. And so in that case, it would be 10, 11, 12, and 13 are more likely, and 14 is less likely. Because there are 2, 1, 4, 7, 4, 8, 3, 6, 4, 8 possible integers for that range. So it depends on what the range actually is, But in all cases, it does not divide 5. That's all, yeah. But, yeah, so I'll take a look at that again. But I wanted to get through this problem that the rand function should not be used all the time for this purpose, to say rand % this, because sometimes you'll get something more frequently than others. That's all I really was saying about that. Any questions about the quiz at all? Yeah, sorry if there was a discrepancy there. I didn't notice that. Yeah.
Why would we ever use rand if we never use a rand?
So I'm showing you a concept that you haven't seen before, and then thinking, well, this is something I haven't seen before. How could I try to solve this problem even though I've never seen it before? So it's just, I tell you what it's supposed to do. It produces a number uniformly at random. You don't need to know how it works internally. You just know that's what the function's supposed to do. Yeah. Yeah, so I come across that type of thing all the time, like literally daily. I see something that I need to solve, some problem that I need to solve, and literally no one has ever done it before. I'm not kidding. And so then I have to think, well, how can I solve it myself? What tools can I use to actually solve it? How do I approach this problem? Do I start coding right away, or do I think I need to do this step, then this step, then this step? So that's what the entire class is about, trying to solve computational problems using tools in C++. Okay, any questions about the quiz though?
Send you an email about that.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And I'll definitely look at it. That's not sarcasm. All right. Any questions on the material so far? Yeah. No, so we've covered everything that we actually need. So the last thing that I think we needed was the menu-driven program, so like presenting a menu and whatnot. We did that last time. And so we're all set for the test. So nothing today will be on the test on Friday. But will it be on the second test? Most likely, yeah. Okay. Any other questions about the material? Okay. So the last thing we talked about last time is this thing called scope, which is remember how a variable works and how you can use it. You declare it first, and then from there down, supposedly, you can use that variable any way you want. You can't use it before it's declared. But a little twist in the problem here is this thing called scope, which is if you can declare variables inside what is called an inner scope, or in this case, it's called a local or block scope. So in this local scope, I declare a variable, and I can use it anywhere in its scope, but I can't use it outside of its scope. And we saw that last time. I don't have the example with me, but if we have like a statement like this, actually let's just leave it like this. So maybe we enter a character, then we see if this character is equal to y, then we can declare an integer x equal to 12, and then some other stuff in there. So all scope really is saying that you can't use x out here because I've declared it inside a local scope, but this scope out here is outside of the local scope where x is defined in here. That's all it's really saying. Some languages allow you to have a variable declared in local scope and then used outside of it later, but C++, I guess for safety reasons, doesn't. So any questions on how scope works? Yeah.
What purpose would you have to have a variable only work in scope?
Good question. Good question. So never do this, but you may be inclined to say, well, I'm gonna declare an integer x right here. And this would be okay, even though I'm redeclaring X here, because it's in a different scope. If I got rid of the declaration here and just did assignment, that's also okay because it's now referencing the variable outside the scope. Yeah?
In regards to flags, when you're using flags, this is completely reasonable. If you have a rule that is true inside the condition, you can set it to false.
But that's setting it to false. Here I'm saying we're redeclaring it. So there's honestly not much in terms of a purpose in C++, but it's mainly for readability purposes. So if I declare all 100 variables right at the very top, that might be hard to understand what's actually going on. So if I declare them only where I'm going to actually use them, then it could clean up readability a little bit. So if I declared char c int x double y, this might be a little cumbersome. But if I declare them only where I'm going to use them, then that might be useful. Okay? So scope is important. We'll see it in like a month or so when we talk about classes, but not this class, C++ classes. But it's just understanding some variables can be referenced in some places and not others. It's not just from top to bottom. It depends on the scope as well. Okay. Cool. So if we want to, so we'll go back. This is kind of related to the menu stuff, but you won't actually need this for the test. So we can use equality with strings here, or characters. So we enter a character, and if it equals some character, we can do that exactly the same way as we did for numbers before. This one's actually interesting. So remember the greater than or equal to for numbers was, is this number at least as large as this other one? Or is this one less than or equal to that one? But for strings, it's a little different. So the cool thing about C++ is you can redefine the operators to do what you actually want them to do. So here, we're redefining it to say, well, so think of a dictionary, for instance. So what this says here is, does name1 occur later in the dictionary than name2 does? So let's look at an example of this. So let's say, so this is the example I wanted to do, but let's work on this example. So if we have a string S1 to be CSE100, and then another string S2 equals CSE205, for instance. So what if I wanted to print, is S1 larger than or equal to S2? So what do you think the answer will be here if I just run this? So does CSE100 occur later in the dictionary than CSE205 does? No, because if we look at the characters, the C at the front's the same, then the S is the same, E is the same, but then now we have a difference. The 1 is now compared against 2, and 1 is earlier, has a lower ASCII value. So remember that ASCII table where each character is associated with an integer. So 1 on that table is less than 2. So by trying to ask, well, is S1 larger than S2 is saying, is the character 1 larger than the character 2? And of course the answer is no. So if we do this, it should print 0, which is false. What if we did this? So if I wanted to do a longer string. So this string is longer than this one. What do you think is going to happen? Does it occur later in the dictionary? Well, let's find out. And of course it doesn't. So think of this for strings as a dictionary. So is one string occurring later than another? Well, we can go wild with this operator and say, suppose that I am trying to model ASU students. And I want to figure out, well, is this student better for this award, let's say, than this other student? Then what might I want to compare against the students to see if one is more deserving of an award than another? What's sorry? Grade might be a valid choice. What else might be a valid choice? What's there? Participation, another one. How about like the scores on a essay for the application? So maybe they assign scores, and then if one person has a higher score than another from someone looking at the essays, then maybe we prefer the one with a higher score. So you can redefine these operators to try to mean what you actually want them to mean, but you have to think, well, what should this operator actually mean? What does it mean for a string to be larger or equal than another string? And in this case, one occurs earlier in the dictionary than the other. Okay. Cool, so we have that. But if we want to actually look at individual characters for a menu application, for example, then here are some helpful functions from this header, CC type, that you may want to consider. So instead of saying, well, maybe we want the user to enter a digit, but I don't want to have an if statement that says if the inputted character equals 0, or equals 1, or equals 2, and all the way to 9. So that might be a bit cumbersome. So here we can just say, if is digit this character, then we're done. So if you want to exclude a digit, then you may want to need to do something else in addition to that. But if you just want to do one of these things, that could be really useful. So let's do this. So let's say that we enter a command, and let's say that in this case, let's change this. So any alphabetic character prints CSE100 rocks. Any numeric character, let's say time to study. So, of course, I can just say for the alphabetic characters, equals capital A, then B, capital C, all the way to Z, or lowercase a through lowercase z. I could do that, but what's the better way? Use the function here. So it's the one that we want to check if something is an alphabetic character is the is_alpha function. So, so of course we have to import the right header. So I'm gonna, oops, I guess it doesn't do that. Include CC type, and then we can use those functions. So if is, and then we have a bunch of functions, some of which you probably won't ever use yet. But if we wanted to use is_alpha, then we gotta put the character in there to say if the character C is an alphabetic character, then we print cout, let's say CSE100 rocks. And then what about the numeric character? So we go back and look. So what is a function to handle for a numeric character? AKA a digit. Is digit, yeah. Because remember, characters are only one character. So if I say numeric, I mean an actual digit in this case. So then, could I just say else in here and say cout time to study? Would that work? Let's see, let's do this. What if I entered a slash? What do you think would happen? It'll go to the else, and in fact it does. So what do I need to do here? It's not a hypothetical question. Yeah. We have the else, but then what else do we need to do? Another starts with an I and ends with an F. If statement. Okay, good. Whew, I was worried. So what should I do here in the if statement? What do I need to recheck? If it's a actual digit. So then I say, if the character C is an actual digit, then we print time to study. So if I do the example slash there, it doesn't print anything now. Yeah. Because I need to recheck some other condition here. Whereas on the quiz, if we go back to it, it says it prints square if some condition is true and not square in every other case. Here, I need to actually do another check because if it's not an alphabetic character, it could be a slash, which is not a digit. So I need to actually do a recheck. There. Yeah.
So comparing of that characters, like the CSE100,
Mm-hmm.
what if the capital C in the one and the low C in the other?
Great question. Let's see. So what table could I look up to actually see whether that's true? So let's say string S1 is CSE100. And as you just said, let's make it lowercase. And then let's do S2 to be capitals of 205. So we have to be able to think, well, what does this actually do? So what do you think this actually does? Well, it's going to actually now make a decision about these because the ASCII value of lowercase c is different than the ASCII value of capital C. How can I don't actually know, I really don't, what the ASCII values of lower and capital C are. What could I do? Well, look up the table. Let's look it up. So let's see. So ASCII table. So here's the one before. So let's look at capital C and lowercase c. And it says, well, lowercase c is here with a value of 99, and capital C has 67. So is lowercase c larger than or equal to capital C? Yeah, because 99 is larger than 67. Yeah. I would, but I think it's okay in this one because yeah, you won't ever really be needing this, but it's just if you do, you don't have to. ASCII value tables are well known, and yeah, that's no issue. Yeah.
Going off this question, so you use else if, like you would only use else if there was like say two conditions, but if there's more, like in the middle one, you use else if.
You mean if there's only one condition?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there was only one condition, either it's alpha or it isn't, then I would do an if else with no other if after it. But if there was something else I might need to do to check for, then I need an if else if. And then we need to therefore have an else if chain as far as we actually need. Yeah.
We had a name to this if alpha. Like a specific thing you want us to do.
Yeah, so it's the CC type header from, is that what you mean, or?
No, like specific type of.
Oh, okay. It takes characters. So it takes CHARs as input, so the range of character, which will be the ASCII table plus some other ones, I think. Because, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. That would be a good thing to figure out. What is the range of is alpha? Can I just put any value from the table in, or could I put something else? And if I could put something else, what does it actually do? Maybe we can actually dive into here. So this doesn't always work, but if you wanted to know, like say, how is alpha even implemented? How did they even implement that? So the one thing you can do is, if you control click on is alpha, then go to, then declaration, then you can actually see the implementation of this. So it says the function is alpha. So notice it takes an int here. So actually the range here, just by looking at this, is int. So I could pass any integer I wanted to. So let's see. Let's put some integer that's way too large. So let's say, forget about this part. And yeah, that's fine. So let's say we printed 1,000, which is outside the range of character. So let's see what actually happens. I don't actually know. So that is actually false. So I actually don't know what happened here. So if someone could look that up and send it to me, I can make an announcement about it, because I'm actually not sure what happens in that case. So if we wanted to look at is alpha further, then it says return. We don't know what return really actually does, but it seems like it's calling this thing called is type. So, and I actually don't know what these are. So let's go dig deeper. Okay, so it's kind of hard to read for other reasons that you might expect, but there's some function is ASCII in here. So it looks like it's doing some check. Is the thing actually an ASCII character? So does anyone know what this question mark has to do there? We didn't cover it, and I'm not going to test on it, but anyone know what that does? So it's actually an embedded else-if condition. So if we go back a ways, maybe here. Okay, not here. So it's in the other slides. So if we go back to the C++ slides and we look at where the operators are, you notice that I said this ternary operator, which has 3 operands, but I didn't explain what it actually does. What happens here is if x1 is true, then x2 will be returned, will be given to you. But if x1 is false, then x3 will be returned. So it's like an embedded if else condition here. So if we go back, then, so let's see. So it says if the character is an ASCII, then it does whatever in the world this does. I actually don't know. I don't know what that does. But otherwise, it does this. Whatever this mask rune thing is, I don't know. I'll take a look at it if I remember. But being able to read, so this is written by someone else. So being able to read other people's code is actually very important. So from this, we were able to, even though we don't understand what most of this actually is, we can just read it and say, oh, it looks like something, we're checking if something is an ASCII character. And it's doing a condition based off that, returns something, and then otherwise it returns something else. So we can actually garner some information about what it actually does on the back end. Okay? Any questions about that?
Yeah, how to do that?
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier. So you hold control, and then click the thing that you want to actually, some function or is alpha or whatever. You can do this with the headers. You can do this with the std, main, all that stuff. So if you control click on is alpha in this case, then go down to go to, and then go to declaration. So if you click declaration, that'll take us to is alpha, like the actual implementation of is alpha. And then we saw, well, this is type thing is here. If we do the exact same thing, do the go to declaration thing, that'll take us to where we were before.
So that code shows what is type, the declaration of is type, what it is.
So it is some function. I don't know what it actually does. So it seems like is type is checking whether the thing that's passed in. So we haven't talked about things that could have variable type. We're just checking whatever in the hell this thing is it have the same type as this thing? So remember, unsigned long is an integer. So it's just checking, is this the same type? And then this if def thing, whatever that is, but we can actually see is ASCII in there somewhere. Yeah.
Can we use that question mark in colon instead of in
You can, but the issue is that it becomes less readable that way. And if you, in the if statement or the else, for that matter, if you need to do multiple statements in it, then you can't do this. Because, well, you can, but it's much more verbose. So if you have like a single thing that you return, so maybe like, I don't know. So remember the return 0 at the end of the main function? Well, maybe we can say if is alpha of C, oops. So let's do this. So maybe we say if is alpha C, then we return 0, and otherwise, oops, did this backwards, 0 and 1. So this says if the character C is an alphabetic character, then we return 0. Otherwise, we return 1. So it's a nice short statement here, so it's easily readable. But if you had something else that was much more verbose than this, then it might be better to do an if-else in that case. It really depends on the situation, though. Other questions? Yeah.
C-type, what is double exclamation?
I actually don't know. How can I figure out what that double exclamation mark is? Look it up. So let's see. Double exclamation mark C++. And I actually don't know. Let's see. Okay, so that's way too complicated. Yeah, I can't explain that yet. A high-level interpretation of it is this thing a valid what is called a pointer? So there are things called pointers that we'll talk about in a few weeks probably. But it's just checking whether something's valid, I guess. I actually didn't know that. So I'm learning with you guys about some of this stuff. So I still have 3 minutes. So any other questions about this? Yeah. It's not, but it's a way of referencing a memory location. But we'll talk all about that not too long. I still have time. Yes. Good question. So if we go back to the ASCII table, then there are what are called control characters. So these things like the new line character, you can't actually enter that on a key, well, the enter key, but there are some things that you actually can't enter on the keyboard. So one of them is called an end of file character. So like if you're reading a file, like your program, like say Microsoft Word is, you loaded up your Microsoft Word document, how does it know when the end of the file is? So there's a special character for that. So, but that's not an actual printable character. So the entire point of isPrint is just checking, do we have one of the characters from, I guess, 32 all the way to the end, I guess not including the last one. So it's just checking whether you can actually print the character. So like if you wanted to print the contents of a file, you may want to check, can I actually print this character? If you can't, then the program might crash, for example. But if you make the check is print at the beginning, then you're guaranteed it can actually be printed. Yeah?
Sometimes when I try to run my program, it'll run it first and then it'll stop running. Like if I change something, and he'll show me something like if you go and you call archive, you call.
So are you stopping CLion and then rerunning, or are you just restarting over and over?
Like if I run it and it comes out like enter the value, and it lets it come back, I might change something, and then it won't run.
You need to re-click the restart button, the run button. Okay, send me an email or come to my office hours or, yeah. Other questions? Good luck with the test on Friday.